My presentation is distributed into three different parts. First one, I will give some concepts and definitions, and we also will explain the objectives of the biosecurity plan or programs in the farms. And second, I will talk about how to conduct a biosecurity program. I will explain the biosecurity levels and the components of a biosecurity plan. And finally, in the third part, I would like to talk with you about some challenges that we are found inside the farms when we are conducting a biosecurity project. Part one, I will start with some definition. Here is an interesting farm. It's the largest dairy farm located in São Paulo, Brazil. So here we also have large farms here. And to start, I would like to do some definitions and some differentiate about some terms. And I will start differentiating biosecurity versus biosafety. Biosafety focuses on the person and what can be done to protect them from harms. This is often the term used for laboratory workers who handle infectious disease agents or equipment such as needles, pipettes, and others. Biosecurity focuses on the larger aspect, like the farm or the veterinary hospital or different kinds of the food animal production systems. For me, the best definition for biosecurity was made by the World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization. And they defined biosecurity as a strategic and integrated approach to analyzing and managing relevant risks to human, animal, and plant life and health, and associated risks for the environment. It's very interesting because it puts the biosecurity inside the One Health concept. And in this slide, you can see the objectives and some achievements when you conduct a biosecurity project in the food animal productions. On the animal side, the biosecurity program can result in the decreased risk of infections, decreased morbidity, decreased severity of disease, reduce the number of the treatments, reduce mortality, and improve the animal welfare, and also the animal, the capacity of the animal to express the maximum of the genetical potential. And it's converted in the higher growth, development, and performance. When we look for the human side, we will have the high available food to feed the world population, because it's a kind of cascade of events that start with the animals and also has some benefits for the human, with the high production of animal protein like milk and beef. We also see the increase of the food safety and security, and decrease risk of zoonosis, and decrease antimicrobial resistance due to the reduced use of the drugs to treat animals. And for the environmental side, we also see some advantages looking for the sustainability, because the production systems will be more productive, and we also see more profitability and low economic losses. And all of these results in a higher global marketing and decrease the environmental contamination. So in the second part, I will talk briefly about the biosecurity program and the levels of the biosecurity, and also how to conduct a biosecurity program in a farm. And also, in the middle of this session, I will present some results from a project that was developed between my university and an important industry, dairy industry from Brazil. The name is Frisia, Cooperativa Agroindustrial. It is the leadership of the dairy industry here in Brazil. And this project was granted by the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Supply from Brazilian government inside a specific program that is called More Health Milk Program. This project has some interesting particularities because the research was conducted in Castro and Carambeí cities, that is the leadership of the milk production here in Brazil. So we will have I will present some results from this specific region that is very important for us here because it's a kind of Brazilian Holland here. So in this slide, you can see the different biosecurity levels that we need to think when we are designing a biosecurity project for a food animal production. The first level is the bio-exclusion, the number one, that means that includes the measures that we can be done to prevent the introduction of disease inside the herd. The number two is biocompartmentalization, that is the measures to prevent the spreading of the disease inside the herd. And the number three is the measures to prevent the spread of the disease on the other herd, in the outside of the herd. And the fourth is some measures to prevent the transmission of disease from the animals to the human, zoonosis. And the number five, biopreservation, is some measures that we do to prevent the environmental contamination. And a good biosecurity project should attain all these different levels of biosecurity. It's the ideal situation. So there is a lot of different approach to conduct a biosecurity project, and my research team have been using the dairy biological risk management that was designed by Danelli, that it was her thesis in the Iowa State University, and all this procedure is available in the Center for Food Security and Public Health inside the website of the Iowa State University. And the biological risk management is divided in three different steps: risk perception, assessment, risk management, and risk of communication. I will talk a little bit about one of each these steps. So the first one is the risk perception. It's in my view, it's the main challenge, is the main barrier, because you need to increase the perception, and in the same time we need to convince the producer to follow all these steps and procedures and managements and practices related to the biosecurity project. And the perception of the producers and collaborators and the technical teams depends on different points. The first one is perception of susceptibility, probability to have that disease inside the herd, for example, and severity of disease. Second, perception of benefits and effectiveness of various actions. Third, perception of barrier, obstacles to performing a recommended health practice. And fourth, perception of the outcome achievement. And five, self-efficacy, motivation, and confidence that the actions will return in some benefits or health for the herd, for example. And all these aspects are influenced by different demographic and psychological variables, and it also includes the influence of the media, the television, internet, and websites, and a lot of possibilities. In our project, we have used in the second steps a questionnaire that is called risk assessment. It contains a lot of open and closed questions, and you can access using the QR code. However, unfortunately, it's in Portuguese. Maybe we need to translate in the future. And the producers need to answer each question, and in the final, we have a total of punctuation that will put the farm in different levels of the biosecurity, as you can see in the bottom of my slide. Here is just a short data from this research. As you can see, the most of farm investigated in our research, there are a punctuation between 200 to 300. This is in the middle of a maximal punctuation that should be 600. So the most of farm is in the low or medium risk of biological disease. This data is from the Paraná state that was conducted the research that I talked to for you. And now the same questionnaire, the same risk assessment is available for all the Brazil. And we are trying to understand the level of the biosecurity in other states in our whole country. And this is the partial results, and the most of farms is in medium high risk, or extremely high risk. It's very concern for me and for other research, because you can invest a lot in genetic, in reproduction. However, if you have some biosecurity problems in your herd, you can lose every investment that was be done. So the third part is the management of biological risk. There's different forms to register the practices, the recommendation and management of the biological risk is identified in the risk assessment. And in our research, we reading a biosecurity manual that includes a lot of different recommendations to prevent the entry, spread, and the spread of disease inside and the outside of the herd. And it will be available online in the website of my university, and it's applied for the Paraná cities, and another is also available for other farms from other Brazilian states. So, and the last one is the risk communication. So communication is the key, is the human. It's very important, the communication, because once risk is identified using the risk assessment and a plan is developed in the risk management part, it must be important that everybody from the farm understands the plan and support this plan should be for it be effective. So in my point of view, it's the most important part, the biological risk management, because you can have a best plan of your life for that farm. However, you need to convince people to put it in practice. And the final part of my presentation is some challenges that we need to face to achieve the success of the biosecurity, looking for a specific farm, a specific state, country, and etc. So there are some boom increase of research about biosecurity, especially in Europe and United States, in the last 10 years. In the last century, anybody talks about biosecurity in the research world. However, in the last 10, 11, 12 years, we have seen a lot of new research, and the most of research said that biosecurity management are poorly implemented as a voluntary program. The most of countries, it's voluntary. And my question is, it should be mandatory, as poultry is here in Brazil. Brazil is a kind of model for biosecurity in poultry. However, in the cattle, we are so late to perform the biosecurity practice. The second challenge is the cost to implement the biosecurity practices and the difficulty to prove that this practice will be converting more milk in more milk quality and etc. The challenge 3 is perception of the disease risk, because a lot of producers answer that the most farmers perceive their on-farm biosecurity as sufficient. The farmers were satisfied with their on-farm biosecurity, even though the biosecurity level was not particularly high, as you saw in the results from my research in Brazil, and it's repeated in other countries. And it's very interesting that the most biosecurity practices is implemented in larger herds. And it's also a child when we're looking for the smaller one or the medium herds here in Brazil and also in other countries. I would like to say thanks from my university, for my partners, and for the Brazilian government that did some grants for our research. I am available for some questions, and thank you.